Hey guys, how's it going? I'm going to make another quick video today on how to make your own custom grungy, scratched, dirty metal, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to be using the preview sphere for this. So if you want to follow along with the same object, just go open sample, discard, go preview sphere, and open it. And because it's one of the sample ones that's already textured, it already is baked. So it's super quick. You can just delete everything off of it and you're good to go. So to make our own custom metal, we're going to need to use a couple things. The first thing that we're going to want to use is we're going to have to fill our object with a material to make the base metal. So under our layers, I'm going to go ahead and add a fill layer. So that's the paint bucket one, fill. And not too much is going to happen once I fill it. You can see here. But now we're going to be going through all these settings, adding stuff and adjusting it to make our metal. So if we want to make a grungy metal, the first thing we need to do is make it metal. So we'll drag the metallic slider all the way to the top. Now you're saying that doesn't look very metal. Actually, I'm going to do one thing before. I'm going to turn off the post effects under display settings up here on the right, just to get all those lens flares out of my face so I can see a little bit better. So, as I'm saying, it doesn't look very metallic right now. That's because we have a little bit of roughness. So if we drag that down, now we got a very metallic preview sphere here. And you can just see it's reflecting the HDRI that the scene is using. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to scuff up the metal, make it a little bit dirty, scratched. So that's where we're going to come into the procedurals, and these things are going to be our best friends in this process. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose one that we want to drop into the roughness channel. So usually I'm just going to search grunge in here, and it's going to bring up all the grunge procedurals, which is our alpha channels. And you're going to choose one that you like. I'm going to go with grunge dirt scratched. I think that one's going to look good. So I'm just going to drag and drop that one into the roughness channel. And right away, you can see we get a very, very old and dirty metal looking sphere. If this is what you want, great. But if you want it to be a little bit cleaner, that's fine too. You can come into the roughness channel here, and there's this balance slider. If you drag it closer to 0, you're going to get nothing. If you drag it closer to 1, it's going to black out the whole thing. So you can find the balance you want for your dirty metal. Now, I'm going to go something like this, where it's a balance between dirt, roughness, and still reflective. Now, we can do one of two things here. If this is all you want, where it's kind of caked on, that's fine. But if you wanted this to be more textural and have some height to it, we can drop that same map or a different map, it's up to you, depends what look you're going for, into our height channel as well. So I'm going to drop that into the height channel. It's going to look absurd at first. Just drag down that balance slider until we get something that we like. Usually it's going to have to be pretty low because it's pretty intense. That's looking not too bad. Also, a quick tip, if this is still too much, let's say you wanted more, but like that's extreme, and you just want it to be a less height, I guess you can call it, less height. Anyways, so this adds a whole nother layer in how you edit things, but under the layers thing, there's this thing that says base color. We can switch this to height, and now when we use this slider here at 100, it's actually going to affect the how tall it's actually going to be. So I can drop that down a little bit, and now it's not so absurd, and it kind of looks a little bit more realistic. So again, this is different from the balance slider. The balance slider is going to fill the object, and this one here is going to make it more prominent or less prominent. So I'm just going to put that around 11 where I had it, and you can change that back to base color. This is just opacity when it's on base color. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a very slight blue tinge to the metal, just because I personally like that. So far we've gotten some pretty grunged up rough metal, and it's still looking fairly clean, even though it's very dirty. So I'm going to add some rust to the crevices and a little bit of the edges, I think. So how we're going to do that, I'm going to come down to our material tab. There's usually 2 rusts in the default settings that we can choose. I'm going to go with the coarse one. It's less aggressive. Going to drag that over our object. Going to come into the smart masks. And then we get to choose which one we want. If I just want the cavities, I can go dirt cavities and drag that one onto our material layer. And now you can see in the cavities here, we're starting to get some rust buildup. And if I want to adjust the size of this, we can start coming down into the settings and adjusting the grunge, the top-down gradient. There's all of these settings that we can go through and add, but I don't think I'm liking that alpha, that mask. So I'm gonna choose a different one. That's this was dirt cavities, but I'm gonna do cavity rust. Seems like it's gonna fill out a little bit more. It spreads a little bit further from the edges. Let's see if we can come into the mask editor here and see if we can just extend this a little bit. Global balance, there it is. So the contrast is going to be how sharp the edges are. So you can see as I drag them up, it's pretty much rusted or not rusted, and when I drag it down, it blends in a little bit more. The texture kind of does the same thing, but in a different way. It kind of roughs up the edges. And then there's texture 2. There's just a whole bunch of different ways. So you're just gonna pretty much play with this, make it the way that you want. And there. Now we got some rust coming along in this thing. It's looking good. Now, if we wanted to add some scratches onto, it's kind of scratched, but we can add a little bit more scratches to our object here. So if we add another fill layer above everything, I'm just going to drag it up above. Now it's gray and it's overlaid our color, so I can uncheck color and uncheck metal and roughness, everything that I don't want to affect. Actually, we're going to need roughness, and I'm going to take everything else off. It's affecting the roughness just because I'm going to need to add another procedural onto it to add some scratches. So I'm just going to add some scratches here, search for some scratches, grunge paint scratch. And it's just going to add that extra little layer of kind of dirtiness to our metal. I'm going to bring back the color, and I'm just going to change this to, that's not going to work. Anyways, so it's looking not too bad. All right. So let's say this is after you mess around, change all your settings, keep stacking things. You can add like blend layers into here, just like Photoshop, like I was saying before. So if I made this a multiply, then you can change this. So if you have this super aggressive, then it multiplies onto different layers. But once you mess around with this and keep stacking different procedurals and rust and materials and smart layers, and you get your metal right, then you'll have your own dirty metal. Alright guys, hopefully you liked the video and hopefully you learned how to kind of start stacking different layers and materials to create your own material. And use the skills that you have to just start making other things. Alright guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.